we should be good to go. Okay. Checking in multiple platforms, whether it's Instagram, Rumble, YouTube, Kick, all of that type of stuff. We are here for this late edition midweek report. We're trying a couple of things here with this one because this is going to be multiple streams here on this, right? So we should be able to have everything here checked in. So thanks for everyone that's able to check in here live on this, whether you're on Instagram or on YouTube or on Rumble or on Kick, because we got multiple platforms that we're going to be streaming this here real quick. We wanted to do this midweek report, as we are here for December 31st, 2025. And on the East Coast, we're just under 2 hours away from it supposed to be in the calendar year of 2026. Yeah, that's right. Calendar year 2026. So, we, had, of course, our Boxing Source end of the year awards on Sunday. We were able to have our winners for these multiple categories here. It was like 12 categories. Yeah, it was a lot for this year, but, we wanted to, give, some, I would say some recognition to a number of the fighters, fights, events, upsets, knockouts, all of that type of stuff that happened in 2025. Okay. So, with that being said, we just going into 2026, and in 2026, we got to see what's going to be going on at least a couple of months down the line, a few months down the line, I would say. But, at least for January here, we got a number of things going on. We got a number of things here coming up. So, we'll definitely be looking forward to all of that here in 2026. You know what I mean? So, we got all of that that's going on. Hopefully, you're able to, check in. Shout out to, our guy here, Jesus M in the building, watching through YouTube here. Happy New Year's Eve to you. Like I said, the countdown is going. I'm trying to get this done before, all of the fireworks and all that stuff goes off, and all of the screaming and yelling and firecrackers and all that type of stuff. Like, listen, once you get to a certain point, all of that stuff kind of like isn't, all too important. Like going out for New Year's Eve and all that type of stuff. Sometimes, it might be cool. Sometimes it's like, you've done it so many times. It's like, come on, man. But, hopefully, if some people are out and about, hopefully y'all are, safe and everything like that, for this particular time period. You know what I'm saying? Some people, might be, home chilling. You got, some fans out here that's, checking out what's going on over at AT&T Stadium right now. Actually, I was checking it out before going live. You know what I'm saying? Right now, it's at the end of the third quarter with the Miami Hurricanes up 17-7 on Ohio State. So, hey, I know you see this thing here. It says, FAMU and everything like that, Tallahassee, stand up. But, as a Florida boy, you know what I mean? You got to check out what's going on with the Miami Hurricanes. And right now, the Miami Hurricanes are leading by 10 points going into the fourth quarter. And I'm like, hey, man, they might get it. They just might get it. But what we're going to do here, you know what I'm saying, is go through a number of things that's happening within the boxing schedule for January. As, we don't necessarily know, outside of a couple of events that's planned for February, what's going to be in store for 2026. But, in the schedule for January, we got a number of things going on. Actually, that's going to be starting this weekend over in Puerto Rico. Yes, you do have Amanda Serrano going in the ring in her home, home there in Puerto Rico, going up against Reina Tejas. Reina Tejas is there as, a replacement opponent there, but, they still wanted to have the fight because, hey, remember one time they had the thing with Amanda Serrano. It was supposed to have like a homecoming of sorts for Amanda Serrano. And then like days before the fight was supposed to happen, she had like a whole thing going on with her eye. So it was like, and it had the whole, fight scratched out. So here, she's definitely looking forward to, having that bout there against Reina Tejas. And you're going to have Holly Holm. Yes, that's right. There is an International Boxing Hall of Fame inductee, Holly Holm, who could have been in as the comeback fighter of the year for the Boxing Source in 2025, but just fell short. That is Devin Miles Haney as the 2025 comeback fighter of the year. But Holly Holm, who did score a win against an undefeated opponent in 2025 after 12 years out the game. Yep, she was able to score a win, and now she's going up against another undefeated fighter in Stephanie Hand on January 3rd. And you're going to have also Henry LeBron versus Juan Tapia on that fight card. You know what I'm saying? So we got a number of things, a number of fights to look forward to that's going to be on the zone on January 3rd, right? So we got that that's coming up on January 3rd. And then for January 12th, this is going to be over in Brooklyn, New York. You do have the WBC super lightweight title on the line as Subriel Matias will be going up against the mandatory challenger in Dalton Smith. Yes, Subriel Matias did get that win over Alberto Puello in July or June or whatever it was. Man, it's been so much. All this stuff that's been going on in 2025. Hey, all I know is I was out there at the Louis Armstrong Stadium there for that particular Ring Magazine event. And you did have Subriel Matias get that decision win over Alberto Puello to become the WBC champion. And, of course, immediately after the fight, we were talking about Subriel Matias. And then, yes, you did have Turkey Al Sheikh saying, no rematch. You fight Dalton Smith. You fight Dalton Smith. And Matias was like, hey, it don't matter. I'm ready. And, yeah, it has taken some time for this fight to, materialize. And yes, it's going to be over there at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. But you will have that defense for Subriel Matias going up against Dalton Smith there within the 140-pound division. And that's going to be a fairly busy 140-pound division just for this month. That's not the only world title fight that's going to be here for the month of January. But Subriel Matias versus Dalton Smith headlines the fight card there at the Barclays Center. You're also going to have Alfredo Santiago versus Henry Cedeno on that card, and Nestor Bravo versus Pedro Campa. You should have another set of fights that, we could look forward to there at the Barclays Center. You're going to also have Emmanuel Rodriguez in there in the ring against Fernando Diaz and Keith Colon against Alberto Guevara. So we do have a number of fights there on the schedule there within January 3rd and January 10th, right? And you also have in Germany the WBC interim heavyweight title on the line. Agit Kabayel going up against Damian Neba. Yes, Damian Neba, has been, having his fights over in the New York, New Jersey area for some time, built up a record here. And yeah, it's only been like 10 or 11 fights, so to speak, for him. So now, after having a fight that was at the Barclays Center, actually he's 17. Actually, he got him at 17-0. His latest fight was against Joey Dueschko, right? And I know Bull Rider. Shout out Bull Rider here on the YouTube. It says, Matias tested dirty, and but they still have him scheduled on for this particular bout because the WBC said it wasn't at a certain level for him to be scratched out of the event against Dalton Smith. So that's crazy work. And shout out to Jesus Sim on the YouTube chat says, can't believe that Holly Holm is still active. Yeah, this is going to be her second fight, returning after having that extended layoff of like I said, 12 years. She was already inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. If folks remember back in 2022, when the International Boxing Hall of Fame, got back up after 2 years of not having a ceremony, they had 3 classes, 2020, 2021, and 2022. And she was in one of those classes. But even after all of that, she returned to the ring in 2025, got a win against an undefeated opponent, and now she's, getting back at it with another fight against another undefeated opponent coming up here on Saturday. But I was talking about the thing there with Subriel Matias and Dalton Smith. Yeah, like I said, sometimes those are the breaks when it comes to testing and it being like inconsistent at times or whatever it is. You know what I mean? But yeah, you're still gonna have that fight. It's gonna happen in January 10th in Brooklyn, New York. And I did mention the thing there in Germany with Agin Cabello versus Damian Neba there for the WBC interim heavyweight championship. Agin Cabello had been one of the more impressive heavyweights out there over the previous couple of years with his big wins that he's had. So he's going to defend that interim heavyweight championship at 26-0, going up against Damian Neba, who I mentioned was 17-0. And yeah, he did go through almost 8 rounds with Joey DeWesco in Brooklyn in October. But, I guess it was like almost days after that fight that they had him up to facing Agin Cabello there. So that's something there that I was like, wow, you're going to put Damian Neba there in that position to fight for the interim title there this quickly? Yeah, that's something, right there. So that's, what we had, at least for the first couple of weekends here. Now, they're going to have some activity on January 17th, but, a lot of people are looking forward to, after those first 2 weekends, what's going to be happening on January 24th. There, you're going to have the IBF title in the lightweight division on the line with Raymond Muirtaya defending that title against Andy Cruz. Yes, Andy Cruz is slated as the mandatory challenger for Raymond Muirtaya. Matchroom ended up winning the bid, and so that is why this particular fight, hosted by Matchroom Boxing, is going to be at the Fontainebleau in Las Vegas. So that headlines that fight card. You're also going to have Khalil Cole versus Jesse Hart on that fight card. I mean, you finally, have the thing there with Khalil Cole and Jesse Hart. That fight was kind of mentioned to happen almost for like a couple of months now, but they have locked that in to be on January 24th on the Matchroom Boxing card. You're also going to have former world champion Israel Madrimov on this card. Of course, lost in the 154-pound world title to Terrence Crawford. But he's going to be on this card here January 24th. And you're also going to have Omari Jones on this card for Matchroom on January 24th. Omari Jones, of course, had his pro debut in March of this year. Well, technically this year, because I'm in the East Coast. If you like overseas or something like that, it's already January 1st. So happy New Year to y'all and all that type of stuff. But it's still 2025 over here. And yes, Omari Jones, had his pro debut over in Orlando, Florida, his hometown, on March 15th and whatnot. And then had his next fight, the next month in April in Atlantic City, if I'm not mistaken. So he's had, a few fights already here within this first, 12 months of his professional career. Of course, he, competed in the Olympics and things like that. But, he's going to be there on that fight card for Matchroom Boxing on January 24th. So that tells you that, hey, we got stuff on the 3rd, fights on the 10th, fights on the 17th. I ain't really mentioned most of those. Fights on January 24th. And then January 30th, right, we got Pro Box TV in the Washington, D.C. area. You know what I'm saying? We got Pro Box that's going to be there on Maryland Live. So we got a number of fights that's going to be on that schedule, on that card there. It's going to be headlined by the bout between Brian Flores and Starling Castillo. So that is going to be the main event there for Pro Box TV. And then in the co-feature bout, you're going to have Suleiman Sagawa there against Rene Galvan. So you do have Suleiman Sagawa, who I've mentioned here over the past year, has been one of the fan favorites here within the Washington, D.C. area. A number of y'all have seen him compete against Bruce Carrington, who is currently the WBC interim champion that's going to be fighting for the WBC featherweight championship on January 31st. So you do have here with Suleiman Sagawa, who's coming off of his stoppage win over Brian Acosta in September, now going up against Rene Galvan. And this is going to be pretty interesting. You got Rene Galvan going in there with a record of 18 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw. They're going up against Suleiman Sagawa, who has a record of 18 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw. And this is going to be really key because you do have there, Suleiman Sagawa, as one of those contenders there in the featherweight division. He's kind of like been around number 6 or number 7 in these sanctioning bodies rankings, right? So you do have all of that that's going on right now within the featherweight division. So a lot of activity there within the featherweight division, right? So now with Suleiman Sagawa having this upcoming fight, that that's one thing to kind of like look forward to there on January 30th. If he gets that win, he'll be able to stay within those top 5 or so within the rankings there for the sanctioning bodies, and eventually could get a world title shot. Whether it's a voluntary defense from one of the world champions, or if he gets his way to becoming a mandatory challenger, if he gets his win over Rene Galvan. And you're going to have a number of local fighters from the DC area on this particular card. I know if y'all follow ProBox TV, social media, particularly on Instagram, they had the whole thing with the poster right there for it, right? So you had a number of the fighters that, have been on ProBox multiple times, such as, the franchise, Francois Scarborough Jr., Jordan Roach, Ben Johnson, Jordan White, short dog Jordan White. You got Dave Body Snatcher Whitmire and Trayvon Marshall, all are scheduled to fight on this card on January 30th. So, and hey, if y'all know me, y'all know that I'm gonna be out there for that. You know what I mean? So it said Bull Rider says on YouTube, he says, where and when is Top Rank fighting now? Bro, I don't know, man. I don't know. I talked with people, I've talked with people over the past few months. If you see what's going on with the schedule, if you see what's going on with the fight, like if you name fighters there that you kind of like see as tied with Top Rank, look where they're, basically at. I talked about, hey, I brought up Bruce Carrington. He's fighting on January 31st. Xander Zayas fighting on January 31st. I'm going to talk about, that whole thing there with that schedule too, right? You got Raymond Murataya, right? He's on the Top Rank, and he's going to be defending that IBF title on the Matchroom Boxing card, right? You could, name other fighters that you would say is on the Top Rank, and I would say they probably be on this card or be on that card or whatever it is. And how about this one, right? Vito Mielnicki Jr. Was he signed on the Top Rank? Yeah. Who is he signed under right now? Samson Lukowicz. Just signed with Samson Lukowicz. So as far as I know, I don't have like a general pinpoint, timetable as to Top Rank and if they have a network deal secured or whatever it is. And talking with people, around boxing, it's like they don't know either, but I would say, hey, if you asked around what happened leading into July, pretty much is why we got this kind of status that we have right now. But that's how I'm gonna leave it with that front. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm just being real with you because hey, I'm gonna go through this thing here. I talked about this with ProBox TV having their fights, right? And that's on January 30th. Now for January 31st, we got a lot of activity. We got a lot of fights. We got man, and I'm just naming three major fights or fight cards that's gonna be happening on January 31st, man. I'm gonna just start off with what is this over in Manchester, England? You're going to have the IBF title at 154 pounds on the line. You're going to have Bakram Murtazaliev going up against Josh Kelly, who is the mandatory challenger or ended up being the mandatory challenger for Bakram's IBF title. Because remember, y'all, it was supposed to be Erickson Lubin as the mandatory challenger, but I guess listen, when you're Bakram Murtazaliev and you're under main events. Have y'all seen main events actually host a full-fledged fight card that's on TV or has or they have a TV deal? No. So that's why you ain't really see Bakram Murtazaliev all year. because they ain't got no TV dates. They ain't got nothing that they could lock up to where they could feature Bakum Zaliev on a card. So that's why you didn't really see him versus Eric Lubin, and you ended up having Lubin facing Virgil Ortiz Jr. over in Texas, right? So now you got Murder Zaliev versus Kelly. That's going to be on another Matchroom card there for January 31st. And even with that kind of like we didn't know when that fight was going to be happening anyway, right? So you got that for the IBF title at super welterweight, excuse me, right? Then later on in the day in Puerto Rico, you're going to have the WBA and WBO super welterweight titles on the line as Xander Zayas goes up against Abbas Barao there in Puerto Rico. So you already have a unification bout between two fighters having their first defense of those world titles. You had Abbas Barao that won the interim championship, but then was eventually elevated to full champion there, of course, with the whole thing with Terrence Crawford being the world champion and going up to 168. So he gave up that WBA belt. So you got Barao as the WBA champion. You got Xander Zayas that won the vacant WBO title there with Sebastian Fundora vacating it. So first defense for both, unification. Crazy, ain't it? But that's going to be the headlining bout there in Puerto Rico. All right. Hold on just a minute. Let me see here. Yo, hold on, y'all. Hold on. Be right back here, real quick. Hold on. Hold on a second, y'all. Yo, yo. Man, nah. This is nah. This was some crazy stuff here, man. Crazy stuff here. Hold on. All right, we should be good. We should be good. But god damn, boy. Listen, the fireworks just started to jump off, but freaking where I'm at, the damn fire alarm got tripped. I'm like, of all the damn times, dog, of all the times for that junk to go off. Come on, man. Come on, man. Boy, oh boy. Listen, but man, I was like, nah, man, I didn't know if I was gonna be, back here for a good little minute, but like, yeah, I stepped out for a good minute because of that gunfire alarm, dog. And now, given what's happening right now outside of the boxing sphere, that would have been an absolute worst time right now because I'm looking at this thing right now. Of course, you're talking boxing. I talked about this thing here with the schedule and everything like that, right? For January and everything, right? But if y'all chilling out at home and you're listening here, thanks for listening here live with the Midweek Report. Like I said, the late edition of the Midweek Report here before it hits 12 a.m. Eastern time here on the East Coast. We have a number of fights that's on the schedule for January starting this weekend. As I was mentioning there, starts over in Puerto Rico. You got Amanda Serrano that's headlining that event in Puerto Rico. And then, we had the thing there with Subriel Matias and Dalton Smith. You talked about the thing there with Subriel Matias having that positive test, but I don't know what it is. I thought, VADA had something, or, the clean boxing program had something where, you couldn't, have anything going on, right? But apparently with Subriel Matias, it was, I don't know if it was just small enough of a sample in comparison to what they needed in order for him to continue to fight. And it is in New York City, or Brooklyn, New York, and a New York State Athletic Commission. I don't know, man. Maybe, the State Athletic Commission could say something. The WBC could say something else. It's crazy, when it comes to all of that. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, just being catching up and everything like that, like I said, with the schedule, their first or January 3rd, then January 10th. You do have fights on January 17th, January 24th. I was talking about there for January 24th in Las Vegas, with that Ray Muay versus Andy Cruz there for that IBF lightweight title. January 30th, you have Pro Box in the Washington, D.C. area. You're going to have a number of those DMV fighters that have been on Pro Box over the course of this year. They're going to be featured in this fight card here, too. It's going to be headlined by Brian Flores versus Starling Castillo. And co-feature bout is Suleiman Segal versus Rene Galvan. Now, we're talking about, the thing with Brock Mundazali versus Josh Kelly for the IBF Super Welterweight title. You got in Puerto Rico, Xander Zayas versus Abbas Barau for the WBO and WBA Super Welterweight titles. There you're going to have Giovanni Santillan, Yuri Cedeno, Rohan Polanco, and Juan Ma Lopez scheduled to have fights. So, when Bull Rider was saying here on YouTube, the thing there reference to Top Rank, they're on that fight card January 31st in Puerto Rico. A number of those fighters are going to be on that card. And if you kind of notice, a lot of the fighters that I mentioned were on that last card that was on for ESPN, headlined by Xander Zayas. They're, winning that WBO Super Welterweight title. I'm seeing here, it looks like what's going on also with college football. Hey, shout out to the Miami Hurricanes, man. Look like the Miami Hurricanes may have gotten them a win here against Ohio State, who were going in as the defending national champions, or the defending college football playoff national champions, or whatever it is. But hey, I guess, the folks are going to say like the Canes are back or something, or whatever, Canes all day, or whatever it is. But hey, shout out to Miami. They did a good job, holding down Ohio State for, most of the game, and then held on here, while Ohio State was trying to push back in the second half. You know what I mean? But, like I was talking about with this upcoming schedule here, talk about the thing there with what's going on in England, Bakhmut Azaliev, Josh Kelly. Then in Puerto Rico, Xander Zayas versus Abbas Barao. Now you got Madison Square Garden, Ring 6, headlined by Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson for the WBO and Ring Magazine titles at super lightweight. I talked about the thing there with Super Matias defending the WBC belt. You got Teofimo Lopez here defending the WBO and Ring Magazine or lineal titles there at 140 pounds, going up against Shakur Stevenson, who is the WBC lightweight champion. So Shakur Stevenson is going to go for a world title in his 4th weight class. He's been the WBO champion at featherweight. He's been the WBO and WBC champion at super featherweight. He's been the WBC champion at lightweight. Now he's looking to get another world title here and kind of like make his name here for, pound for pound rankings as far as like being top 5 or whatever it is. And oh man, Miami just scored a touchdown with under a minute left here, while I'm looking at what's going on with the college football playoff. And I just saw, Michael Irvin going crazy once again. Hey, they better not be talking with the coach there, Mario Cristobal, after the game and Michael Irvin sneaking up on him or something like that. You know what I mean? But, with that being said, when I talk about the thing there for Ring 6, that is a headlining bout, Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson. So definitely looking forward to all of that there. That's coming up for that main event, right? And then you have in the co-feature bout, should be the co-feature bout of what I'm looking at, is Keyshawn Davis going up against Jermaine Ortiz. Yeah, we could have had the thing there with the IBF title at 140 pounds air as a co-feature, because I thought it was going to be Africa. I thought it was going to be Africa going up against Jermaine Ortiz there. But yeah, for some reason, it is not going to be Africa going up against Jermaine Ortiz. There were Richard Hitchens being the IBF champion at 140 pounds. But, now, we had the whole thing that was going on. And yep, shout out to Dante Boxing Talk. The businessman is back. And yeah, he was going off. He's like, yeah, oh, look at me right now. Oh, I'm right here. I'm back. See, I didn't want to say, he's like, I didn't want to say nothing, which, was crazy because, going into last week, right? Last Monday, he had the event over in Norfolk, with the charity event, community event, there with his brothers DB3. And I guess a day later or a couple days later, maybe some people kind of like found out that he was going to be the one replacing Richard Hitchens there on his fight card. So, with that being said, that kind of like says, hey, that makes this event a little bit more interesting because now we get to see where Keyshawn Davis is right now, given that, of course, what happened in the summer over in Norfolk. He was supposed to fight Edwin De Los Santos. It didn't happen. Then we had the incident that happened with Nahir Albright, whatever you call it there in Norfolk, Scope Arena in Norfolk. You know what I mean? So nobody knew what was going to happen from that. Then you had the thing with Keyshawn talking about, hey, I'm going to take a break from boxing. But now looks like he's back. He's going to be in the ring and everything like that. So, hey, maybe you got to call and say, hey, if anything happens here with Richard Hitchens, let's see what happens on that front. And we know, of course, the back and forth that happened between Keyshawn Davis and Richard Hitchens there during the press conference for Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson. You know what I mean? So that is one thing we kind of like looking forward to here with Keyshawn Davis is how he's going to perform against Jermaine Ortiz, who has, been floating around there, from 135 pounds now, 140 pounds, had been in the rankings for the WBA and things like that, 140. I had seen him in action in March over in Orlando, Florida. So, he's trying to, make it a name there within the 140-pound division, and this is going to be interesting. Bull Rider says here on YouTube, is Keyshawn calling out Shakur now? Well, they did have something, I think it was inside the ring here earlier this week, right? And on that front, he, they brought it up in reference to him potentially fighting Shakur Stevenson if Shakur Stevenson wins against Teofimo Lopez. And we had like a whole little thing of what he was talking about and this and that, and talk about Shakur or whatever. And then Keyshawn said, "Hey, if I go in there and I win my bout and Shakur wins against Teofimo Lopez, then I'm gonna make my debut at 147." All right, come on, man. When they say that they're brothers, that's it. They're brothers. Like they ain't gonna face each other. It ain't gonna be like like a Floyd Mayweather versus Zab Judah, or Sean Porter versus Adrian Broner, or I don't know, man, like maybe Sean Porter versus Terrence Crawford or something. I mean, y'all know about friends and probably like former Olympic teammates fighting and all that type of stuff. With which Keyshawn and Shakur, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. They've had a whole bunch of questions as far as like, oh, if it was for a whole bunch of tens of millions of dollars and all that type of stuff, like Andre Ward. I think Andre Ward asked Keyshawn Davis that question. If there was like 10 million or $20 million on the line, like, would you do it? And Keyshawn's like, nah. It's to the point where when somebody, I guess, was there for you when nobody else was. That's pretty much how Keyshawn explains Shakur Stevenson to him. You know what I mean? So yeah. And yeah, man, Sweet Pea and Taylor, they never fought, and those dudes fought everybody. Yep. So yeah, there you go. That's an example, they're from back in the day. Shout out to Dante Boxing Talk on that one. But yeah, so if you had a thing there with Keyshawn Davis, getting a win over Jermaine Ortiz there and everything like that, then and Shakur wins, you still ain't gonna see that fight. Shout out to my folks there on Instagram Live watching now. You can watch on Instagram Live, or on YouTube or on Rumble. I had my guy there, Clarence McClain there, No Duck Zone in the building. Was checking in, and my guy Mo City Menace was there in the building, man. So shout out to you watching here on Instagram. But that was the whole thing in reference to that question from Bull Rider there when it comes to Keyshawn Davis and Shakur Stevenson. And like I said, while I was doing everything like that, hey, it's locked down, man. The Miami Hurricanes going to the college football playoff semifinals. They did beat the defending college football playoff champions from last year, Ohio State. I ain't gonna say I called it, but I don't root for Ohio State, so I wasn't picking them to beat Miami. Nah. All right, so back to this thing here for January 31st in New York City. Said Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson for the WBO and Ring Magazine super lightweight titles. You got Keyshawn Davis there versus Jermaine Ortiz there in the super lightweight division. You do have Keyshawn Davis there at number 1 in the WBO rankings, of course, being a former WBO lightweight champion. Okay, so you do have that as one of the fights. You also have in the middleweight division Carlos Adames versus Ammo Williams for the WBC middleweight championship, where Carlos Adames, a number of people thought Carlos Adames was going to fight Janibek there, but that didn't necessarily happen. And what's interesting to me, at least, is Carlos Adames is facing Ammo Williams, but when they were trying to get the fight done between Adames and Janibek, didn't Adames have a little bit of an issue with the mandatory challenger? So what happened with all that? Hey, I'm just saying. Like, listen, don't ask me to try to pronounce that person's name. That's like one of those, like if you said Janibek Anamhala, listen, if you hadn't really seen Janibek's name and you were trying to read it for the first time, that's how I would butcher this mandatory challenger's name here. Oh, yes, Marimo No Sultanov. See, almost did it right up. Right. So, Sultanov should have been the mandatory there for Carlos Adames, but guess that didn't even work out. You feel me? So now you see Adames going up against Ammo Williams. You know what I mean? Dante Boxing Talk says one guy said he'll drop the belt go down, and the other guy say he will go up. Yeah, that fight ain't happening. Yeah, you got Shakur Stevenson saying if he beats Teofimo Lopez, he'll drop the belt and then go back down to lightweight. Then you got Keyshawn Davis saying that if he win against Jermaine Ortiz and then eventually gets a world title or something, they're at 140 pounds, and him and Shakur are the last ones standing at 140. Then he said they'll go up to 147. Hey, yeah, man, that's crazy work, bro. That's crazy work. You know what I mean? So with that being said, you got that, like I mentioned there, with the WBC middleweight championship with Carlos Adames and Amo Williams. Amo Williams, hey, that's another one that another fighter that I saw out there in Orlando, Florida in March. That was the matchroom card. I talked about the thing with Jermaine Ortiz. I talked about Omari Jones being on that card. So you have a few of these guys that have fights coming up here in January, and that includes here Amo Williams, and this is like his opportunity to fight for a world championship. He was coming up in the rankings there, middleweight division, up until last year when he had the fight against Hamza Shiraz in that Matchroom versus Queensberry 5v5, and he ended up getting stopped by Hamza Shiraz. Now, after a few wins here, he gets an opportunity to fight for and win a world championship. This time it'll be the WBC middleweight championship against Carlos Adames. And, folks with Adames, they know about his fight that he had against Hamza Shiraz, where it ended up, being a draw and everything like that, where some people felt like Adames won that fight against Hamza Shiraz. You feel me? But now you had a thing with Carlos Adames, man. He hadn't had a fight since his bout against Hamza Shiraz in February, right? So that's going to be a pretty extended layoff there for Carlos Adames. And of course, we saw what happened there with Erislan De Lara having a WBA belt, and we don't know what's going on with the WBO and the IBF belts with Janibek having that test result, come back. So we don't know if those belts being ultimately vacated or whatever, but that kind of like messes up the scene in already a messy middleweight division where we could have had a unification there, Janibek, but you blew it. I'm sorry, you blew it. All right. So that is those 3 fights on the schedule. You also do have Bruce Carrington going up against Carlos Castro for the vacant WBC featherweight championship there. The WBC featherweight championship. Remember that Stephen Fulton had the WBC belt there at 126 pounds, went up to face Oshaki Foster, which would have been for the WBC belt at 130 pounds, but hey, we all know what happened there with Stephen Fulton. Hey, it is what it is. All right. So now with Bruce Carrington, who was the interim champion until the whole thing with Stephen Fulton, now could fight for the full belt there at 126 pounds against Carlos Castro. I mean, we've seen Bruce Carrington in action there. He's had a number of those fights in New York City, particularly in the theater at New York, at Madison Square Garden, it is. Now he's there in the big building here to fight for the world championship, going up against Carlos Castro, who did have a split decision loss to Stephen Fulton, where he did knock down Stephen Fulton in that fight. And some people may have thought that he won that fight against Stephen Fulton. But judges didn't see it that way, or at least 2 judges didn't. So, and he hasn't had a fight since. So this is going to be something to see where Carlos Castro is at this point, being inactive for, almost over a year, because that fight against Fulton was in September of 2024, man. So it's been a good minute since Carlos Castro's been in the ring, but he's going to be able to see if he can fight for and win this world title going up against Carrington. You feel me? So that's, mainly what you have there on the schedule for January of 2026. And like I said, we're pretty much like about an hour away here from it being turned over to the calendar year 2026 over here in the East Coast or whatever it is. So you're gonna be having fireworks and all that type of stuff going off. Hopefully, everyone is chilling out safe and things like that. Or if you're out and about, just chilling out with your friends and family, be thankful going into 2026 and big things for 2026, right? All right. So that being said, we do have a wish list of sorts for 2026 in the sport of boxing. Okay. So I don't know what y'all have as far as like a wish list for 2026, but for me, there's gonna be like a few things here, right? Okay. Number one, we gotta have Devontae Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach Jr. in a rematch. We gotta have it. Yes, I've talked with Lamont Roach Sr., who had the recent interview with Lamont Roach Sr. He did say that Lamont Roach Jr. is recovering from an injury that he had in his bout against Isaac Cruz, and said that we're planning on getting back in the ring by late spring, so it'd be around May or June that you could see Lamont Roach Jr. back in the ring, right? But we got to see that fight against Tank Davis. Given what happened on March 1st at the Barclays Center, a number of y'all seen it on pay-per-view, seen it live. Some of y'all been at was at the Barclays Center. I was at the Barclays Center. We all saw what happened. Great fight. Went toe-to-toe at a number of times there in the fight after the first few rounds, because the first few rounds, just being honest with you, wasn't really much going on. They were trying to figure out what's happening. But after that, the action started to pick up, and Lamont Roach Jr. said, "Hey, he was ready to boogie," and that's what he did against Tank Davis. And a number of people didn't expect that. So, given the judges' scorecards having a majority draw because one judge had it in favor of Tank Davis, I want to see if they're gonna run it back. You feel me? He said. Shout out to the UK in the building here on YouTube. What it says, if I could get this showing here. Yeah, you heard of the up and coming Just Turned Pro from Europe, Gabe? Nah, I haven't heard of that particular person there. So I might have to get let's see here. You're saying that he's from the UK? Like, you sure he's from the UK or is he, from Australia or something like that? So you have to give me the full name, because I got someone else here for who you're mentioning, and I think he's from Australia, who I think you were talking about there, Loyal William. All right. You said Bull Rider said, as who won coach and fighter of the year. All right. If y'all missed a thing there for Sunday, and I don't know if y'all ain't seen it there on social media, at least through Instagram or whatever it was. You do have there for coach of the year. I did have Robert Garcia there winning coach of the year. Okay. You have the thing, like I said, with Raymond Moritai. You got Virgil Ortiz Jr. You got Jesse Bam Rodriguez among the featured fighters there under Robert Garcia's camp. That's scored big wins over the course of 2025. So that's why I had Robert Garcia there as a winner for the 2025 Boxing Source Coach or Trainer of the Year. And for the 2025 Fighter of the Year, that is Terrence Bud Crawford for his performance in win over Santos Saul Alvarez Barragan for the undisputed super middleweight championship. So you have Robert Garcia as the Coach or Trainer of the Year, and Terrence Crawford as the 2025 Boxing Source Fighter of the Year. Hadn't heard of the Thai prospect either, but nah. So that's the thing there. So I ain't heard of them either. All right. So in first one, yeah. Second one, nah. Nice try though. Nice try. So that's what they had there. All right. So going back to the whole thing with the wish list, number one, I said Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach Jr. We got to have that rematch. Okay. We should have that rematch there. All right. Yeah, like I said, nice try, but almost. But want to see Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach. All right. And the other one that I would like to see, we might end up seeing. Yeah, it's in the heavyweight division. And yeah, some people might say, why should we have this? But in order to kind of like close the chapter of sorts, then we should have this matchup here, and that is Alexander Usyk versus Deontay Wilder. Okay, I think that with Usyk, Usyk being able to have the wins that he has over Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. There's only one fighter left within this heavyweight era that kind of like was the story of the heavyweights from, like, I would say 2015, 2016 up until now. Okay. And those are the three: Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. With Alexander Usyk having the two wins over Joshua and Fury, there's only one fighter left on there, and that is Deontay Wilder. And yeah, I did, hear about, the whole thing with Deontay Wilder, and he had a recent interview there on Cigar Talk, right? And had a few things going on with all that. But, they kind of like talked it up over the past couple of months. We've had Wilder kind of talk about it. We've had Usyk recently talk about it here as of a few days ago. Okay. But with that being said, I kind of felt like it was going to be happening after the whole thing with the WBO, and first Usyk giving up the WBO belt, then with Fabio Wardley defeating Joseph Parker for the WBO title. I didn't think that Alexander Usyk was going to be facing Fabio Wardley to be undisputed again or something. So, you know what I mean? So there's that. So a lawyer William UK talks about this thing here with never getting to see Joshua versus Fury. You know what I mean? And with what happened there with Anthony Joshua over in Nigeria, there with that car wreck that took two of his trainers, man. That was just really, really tragic there. Sinagami and Kevin Ayodele there, ended up losing their lives there in that crash. Now, I did have someone kind of like send a video. I haven't watched it. I'm not gonna watch it. You know what I mean? It's one thing that kind of like see car accidents, but it's another thing when when you yourself have been involved in one. And also when you've lost someone, due to a car accident. So like for that, like that's why, I hadn't even seen it. And condolences go out to the families of Shinigami and Kevin Ayodele there, and Anthony Joshua. Reports say that he's been released from the hospital. I mean that Joshua always goes out there. That's pretty much like his second home of sorts. There, given his family background, so that's why we kind of like went back there. You know what I mean? But that was very, very tragic there. Because the thing I was going to say in reference to Anthony Joshua was that before the whole thing with the Jake Paul coming up, that there were movements of having the fight between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury taking place in 2026. I was going to say that it would be by September of 2026. Now, I don't know like how this kind of like turns out or whatever it is. It was like some injuries and everything like that, but it says like reports currently say here, from what did it say, about an hour ago or 2 hours ago, that Joshua has been released from a hospital in Nigeria. So, but yeah, he still has that vision in his mind, man. Because like I said, I've been in I've been in an accident where the vehicle turned over. You know what I mean? And some of us know about other fighters being involved in car accidents or motorcycle accidents and all that type of stuff. So it's crazy. You know what I mean? And it says, for the thing with Fury and Joshua, it says it's thing in reference to money. Yeah, I mean, at times, yeah, that's what it was. But it looked like it was going to all, form together and have them finally fight here for 2026. But now, with this happening, I'm not sure how the whole recovery process is going to be for Anthony Joshua. If he is gonna like even think about stepping in the ring again, you know what I mean? So we got to see how that's going to shape itself out on that front. You feel me? But that would have been part of the thing there for my wish list. But yeah, we got to see what's going to be going on with Joshua here on this front. All right. So with that being said, what else could be out there for the wish list of 2026? Some people would say Boots Ennis versus Virgil Ortiz Jr. Some people thought that it was all but a mere formality that it was going to be happening in 2026. But it looks like here over the past couple of weeks, come on, like it's not really shaping itself to get to happen. We've had one person that represents one of the fighters say that they asked for a certain price point that it's been put out there, and then he follows it up and then tries to explain it and everything. But like all I'm seeing is like they're not doing what it takes in order for that fight to happen. Because a lot of things were like saying, "Hey, we could have had this happen." You had Jerome Businis step in the ring after Virgil Ortiz defeated Erickson Lubin over in Texas, and Boots was like, "It's time, it's time." But even like weeks after that, we didn't even get any type of progress for it. So yeah, it's on the wish list for 2026, but I'm not sure it's going to be happening. Okay. One fight here at 140. And I don't know, maybe there's an outside chance it's going to happen given one particular fighter being taken off of a fight card. But I don't know. But this is the fight that I want to see. Richardson Hitchens versus Gary Antoine Russell. You got the IBF champion at 140 pounds. You got the WBA champion at 140 pounds. And as of right now, they don't have a fight scheduled. You had Gary Antoine Russell was supposed to be fighting Andy Hirooka. That was supposed to be in November when it was Jake Paul versus Tank Davis. That would have been in Miami. But with the whole thing being scratched, that fight was scratched off the entire card. So even with Jake Paul fighting Anthony Joshua here a couple of weeks ago, they didn't have, Gary Antoine Russell versus Andy Hirooka on that card. So even with Hirooka being a mandatory challenger, we still haven't had any update, or I hadn't really caught up with what went on with the WBA convention a couple of weeks ago to say if there's any progress of that fight being rescheduled. Maybe it would be on for like say the Sebastian Fundora Keith Thurman fight that would be rescheduled. But outside of that, what I want to see at 140 pounds is Richard Hitchens and Gary Antoine Russell. Okay, so that's another fight. All right. What would be another one? All right. Yeah, I know that this particular fighter is going to be part of a super fight that's slated for May. But I actually want to see Junto Nakatani versus Bam Rodriguez. That's what I want to see. Naoya Inoue, Junto Nakatani, yeah, I know they were trying to put this fight together for some time. Junto Nakatani, Naoya Inoue, super fight, Japan, I get it. But we should have had Junto Nakatani versus Bam Rodriguez, and we should have actually had this for at least since what, early 2024? These guys have been going back and forth between 115 and 118 before you had Junto Nakatani had his fight at 122 this past weekend. But yet you couldn't have Bam Rodriguez and Junto Nakatani fight each other. So how about this? Whatever happens in this fight between Inoue and Nakatani, Some say, hey, given what Nakatani went through in his last fight against Sebastian Hernandez Reyes, great fight, by the way. Great fight. But looks like they kind of leaning towards Naoya Inoue being a pretty good favorite against Nakatani in their fight over in Japan. So if Nakatani ends up, falling short, why not have the fight between Nakatani and Jesse Bam Rodriguez? Like we gotta have something, and we gotta have something with that. All right. So that, at least for me, is my wish list of sorts here for now for 2026. And we got a few things here that we're gonna be trying to look forward to on this front. You feel me? But as far as like the overall state of boxing, hey, I don't know. I don't know what that's going to be like. I've kind of heard a few things here and there that kind of like make it seem like it's down, but we kind of go through this every year. We have these moments of, oh my God, boxing is dead. Boxing is dead. It's done. We through. It's over. But yet, year after year after year, we have something that gets people rejuvenated, excited, or something like that. So I don't know what's going to be happening this year. Yeah, I talked about the whole thing with Top Rank and what their potential status could be. I've also heard something for like say for example, Golden Boy Promotions. Some people are like, who knows what's up with that. A number of people were talking about this year in reference to they say PBC, or as I say, TGB Promotions, or Samson Boxing, or Warriors Boxing. All of those promoters that have events through PBC. So we see what happens with all of that. But somehow, some way, boxing finds a way. So we'll see what goes on with that. Shout out to my guy L Dub in the building on the YouTube here. What's good with you? Like I said, this is like a late edition of the Midweek Report here for December 31st here. As I say, New Year's Eve. We are under an hour away from it being 2026 in the calendar year of whatever, you know what I mean? So that's what we got. I did, say in reference to the thing with the wish list, have my wish list. If y'all have a wish list for 2026, y'all, go ahead and, share that in the comments, live comments here, or, comments that'll be on YouTube, or whatever it is that you could check it out. Cause I'm on YouTube, I'm on Rumble. I don't even check about what was going on with Kick, but I can't even see if I get any responses there on Kick. But I'm gonna get all that sorted. You know what I mean? So that's a thing for 2026, right? And have plans for 2026. One, to try to get more people involved with the Boxing Source in 2026. Of course, we have our panelists that are involved through the Boxing Source. I've had a couple of folks kind of be correspondents for the Boxing Source in a little bit of a capacity in 2026, but I'm going to try to get more people involved with it. You know what I mean? But it has to be through the Boxing Source. And that's it. Nothing else, no one else. It can't be through another entity. If you're going to try to have something in reference to being or covering through media, if you're going through the Boxing Source, then you're going to have to represent the Boxing Source. And it's going to have to be 100% thorough on that. Now, Bull Rider asks on YouTube, where are you broadcasting from? Are you saying like location, or through what streaming platform am I using? Well, the streaming platform is kind of like shown here if you're looking through YouTube. But as far as like location, yeah, I'm like in the East Coast with all that. So, and I kind of like said, pretty much like East Coast, DMV area, all that type of stuff. You feel me? But yeah, that's the other thing there as far as like what my plans are for 2026. There is having more people involved with the Boxing Source and covering events through the Boxing Source. So we're gonna get that, because what I wanted to do is actually get more involvement with the website, because everything from the website is all myself, right? So try to get more people to write articles, contribute, pitch into social media, that type of stuff, in order to get involved in the media game. Because I've been, off and on part of the media game for about, it's going to be 10 years plus now. And now I'm going to try to see if I can expand this particular media platform. If I had people had their starts, or pretty much been like as they say, an advisor of sorts or a mentor of sorts. I've been called a mentor in this thing, but I'm going to try to see about getting more people involved in the media aspect of it. And hey, I've been talking this, but you're saying that I've been in this game for 10 years, but did I go into school for broadcasting? No. Did I go into school for journalism? No. I went into school under IT, computer engineering. Have certifications under computers, Cisco certified, that type of stuff. But nothing in journalism, nothing in broadcasting, but still able to, do what I've been able to do here through boxing. You know what I mean? So what I want to do is try to get more people involved in boxing media, and have them be able to cover events, whether it's within their area or in different parts of at least the U.S. And I've had people, whether it's been here in New York or over in England. And as far as England, like, people have pitched in from covering events in the UK and sent stuff over. So we'll try to see if I could expand on that front. Now, the other thing here too is had this, going on for the past few months. And some people have seen what's been going on with it, and I'm going to share it a little bit more here. So, and y'all have seen it, and that's through the trading cards. So with that being said, that is what I got going on. So if y'all could bear me for real quick, I am going to step up, and then I'm going to get the thing here with the trading cards. So if y'all hear me, y'all gonna be hearing me from some distance, right? Because some of y'all know I have trading cards and everything like that. Y'all probably could barely hear me, but you're gonna hear me a little bit louder now. So I've been having the cards in development for months, but I didn't have the whole thing as far as like what type of design to use, but I do have that, and that's been locked in, and I've had these cards designed and done. All right. One recent fighter that I've kind of produced here is the thing here with, hopefully you're able to see it if it goes close. I got to go close because I do have a light here, but you do have Jalil Major Hackett, right? I do have No Time Esri Turner. Yeah, I might have to turn off the this light here. So I'm going to see if I could do it better off with this light off. You might have a different type of view here with this, but I might need this light off. So that being said, okay. So now I don't have that. So now you can pretty much see it, right? You see like the thing there with Esri Turner. Or if I try to switch over to this other camera there, like you should be able to see it now. So I'm going to do it like that. So let me get this other light on here. And like you're able to see the thing there with Esri Turner. I'm going to put it on the other camera there. So you got Esri Turner, right? Who else do I have here so far? Oh, yeah. Mention him being on the fight card for January 31st. It should be Keyshawn Davis there. So we got Keyshawn Davis. Who else we have? Also, like a Jesse Bam Rodriguez. We got Jesse Bam Rodriguez. Who else? Did say, we got some from, the area here. Shout out to Irvin Fuller III, so we got Irvin Fuller III as one also, right? And we got like a few others that I've kind of like featured, Shakur Stevenson is another one. I also do have like a Bruce Carrington and Lamont Roach Jr., right? Lamont Roach Jr. has a set of cards himself, and his father, Lamont Roach Sr., has a set of cards himself. right? So they have seen it, but kind of like been in the move as far as like trying to develop the cards. This would kind of like be the cover of sorts for it. Once I do, once I am able to release a set. But the thing about it is that in this kind of like this development phase or this push out phase, we've had a number of fighters that have been very interested in these cards. I did mention Ezra Turner. Ezra Turner has said like, hey, you could put this out and have it, be selling it. So I've been selling like the Ezra Turner cards, and they've been, going pretty good. I will have, I think it's Jaleel Hackett out because they've kind of said to have that done. But a number of fighters I mentioned also have one for Terrence Crawford. Yeah, did announce his retirement, but I do have a card for Terrence Crawford. Have one for Brian Bomac McIntyre and a number of others right now. So I have under estimation through either like print phase or development phase about 50 different cards within the series right now. It's probably going to end up being like 60 to 70 for what I have, but the ones that I have right now, I'll be able to like have a pack, but I'm going to start releasing more cards here within this coming month here, as we're only I would say 34 minutes away technically from 2026. But given the fight that's coming up here on January, specifically the Pro Box card, I will have trading cards available, should be having trading cards available for up to seven of those fighters featured on that Pro Box card. So I'm going to have those seven. I'm going to have, more for what's going to be coming up for January 31st and more, coming on down the line. So if there's like any fighter that maybe, you be looking for, I'll probably have it. But again, one is about, having the what I would say, like the development phase of it, and notifying fighters or representatives of fighters that they have these cards, and then they'll be able to see it, and if they cool with it, then it's good to go. Because I've had like some that I've already like pre-released, and they've had like a good feedback, because it's just, like I said, it has that classic look to it, at least to it right now. And this is like how it looks, glossy, 14 point, all that type of stuff, right? So that's what we got right now. There'll be more, like I said, more in the future. And I will be, talking with a few people as far as like getting them done, as far as when it comes to like different types of quality, or, like having gold foil and all that type of stuff for all the folks that are collectors and everything like that. I'll have that ready to go. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, that's what I got here in this edition of the Midweek Report. As of right now, it's almost, it's like it's supposed to be 32 minutes away, and we're starting to hear fireworks. You know how it goes. People are, jump the gun and all that type of stuff. You feel me? But once again, y'all be safe. Happy New Year to y'all. Be thankful. Like I said, with what's went down in 2025, shout out to everyone that's been able to support the Boxing Source here for 2025. Big things here for 2026. And, like I said, the thing there with the trading cards too. And another thing that I'm going to try to look for doing starting in the next series here, as far as like the next set of the podcast, everything like that, is do some type of giveaways or, donation and that type of thing, contest for people that, would contribute towards the Boxing Source and things like that. So I'm going to, start getting that organized, like have free giveaways and everything like that for those that, have been supporting the Boxing Source and things like that too. So, hey, maybe I'll have it to where, y'all could win, a set of the trading cards plus like some memorabilia from, events that I've been to or something like that. So I might end up doing that here on this front. All right. So with that being said, y'all, that's what I got. I'll catch y'all later. Y'all be safe. I'll see y'all in 2026. All right. Peace out.